On Thanksgiving Day, my own son called me a leech. I wasn't out for revenge, just remembrance.
Grandpa, we have to leave. Mom's been lying. That's what my granddaughter whispered to me just moments before the toasts were about to start. Her voice was shaking. Her hand clutched mine under the white draped table like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Outside, the wedding band was tuning their instruments under a string of Edison bulbs. Inside, clinking glasses, fake smiles, and too much blush. The whole place smelled like overcooked salmon and florists trying too hard. But her eyes, they cut through it all. You need to see this. She slid her phone into my palm. And the second I read the first message on that screen, I felt something crack inside me. A quiet, clean break. Shocking, right? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. My name is Frank Marino. I'm 58, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Used to work swing shifts at the Ford plant off Georgeville Road before they shut it down. These days, I mostly drive for deliveries and help folks fix up old riding mowers. I've never been the kind of man to cause a scene, but this night, something changed. Because the woman walking down the aisle earlier, the one in a $3,800 dress I paid for, that was my daughter, Michelle. And the man waiting for her at the altar, that smug bastard in designer shoes with hair gel thicker than his conscience, that was Alan, her new husband. The wedding was held just outside Grove City, a vineyard-style venue tucked behind a golf course. Very trendy, very not me, but I'd written the check anyway, 40% down up front. Venue manager said she'd never seen a father pay that fast. The drive here had been quiet, just me and the Ford. Wipers beating slow against the drizzle. On the seat beside me, a manila folder. Certified copies, contracts, deeds, receipts. Everything with my signature on it. I hadn't planned to bring it in, but something in my gut told me tonight wouldn't go the way they'd rehearsed it. And then Sophia showed me those texts. My granddaughter, 15, straight A student. Quiet, but sharp as a tack. She doesn't say much, but she sees everything. While everyone else was tossing flower petals and popping champagne, she was watching, reading, listening, and she'd caught enough to know something was wrong. The first text was from Michelle to Alan a week before the wedding. Once he signs over the property, we're good. He won't fight it. He never does. The second was Alan's reply. Good. I'm not sharing a house with your broke-ass dad. Give him a gift card and send him packing. That's what they thought of me. A man who co-signed her first mortgage. A man who paid off her car note after her divorce left her in pieces. A man who sat in silence when she blamed me for her life falling apart, because I couldn't stomach the thought of her hurting more. That night, I stood behind the table, looking out at a room full of smiling strangers. Alan was laughing with the groomsmen, oblivious. Michelle was taking selfies with her sorority friends, face angled just right to hide the selfishness. I slipped the phone into my coat pocket and excused myself, walked outside, lit a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in years, but I kept one in the glove box, for emergencies. This felt like one. I leaned against the old truck, watching rain pool on the gravel. Wipers creaked back and forth, and I remembered. Last December. Michelle called crying. She'd gotten laid off, said she couldn't pay the house note, said Sophia needed new winter boots, said she was drowning. I didn't ask questions. I just wired the money. 3 weeks later, I saw a photo of her in a Cancun resort tagged on Facebook. I told myself it was old, that maybe she just needed joy. But in that moment, standing in the cold, everything aligned. They weren't just ungrateful, they were plotting. Michelle had asked me to sign a quitclaim deed for her refinancing. Said it was just to lower the rate. Said I'd still have equity. She'd even scheduled a notary to come to my house. But I never mailed it in. I never trusted Alan. Thank God I didn't. because the house still legally belonged to me. My name, my equity, my taxes, and I had proof. Sophia came outside and stood beside me. She looked like she wanted to cry, but she held it in. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said. "I thought maybe it was just a joke. But then I heard them laughing about moving you to a trailer. Said you'd be too dumb to notice." Her voice cracked. They were going to take everything. I nodded, quietly. She pulled a folded paper from her purse. A receipt, dated 2 weeks ago. Alan. Wedding floral invoice, paid with Frank's account ending in 1089. That wasn't a shared account. That was my personal card they'd stolen from me. Back inside, they were preparing for the toasts. I re-entered the hall like nothing had happened. I smiled. I clapped. I raised my glass when they called me the Rock of the Family. But inside, I was volcanic. They handed me the mic. Guests leaned in. Alan smirked, thinking I'd give some sentimental speech about fatherhood. Instead, I said this. "Before I begin, I just want to thank the venue staff for being so understanding, especially since the deposit for tonight was nearly canceled this morning. But I assured them I'd cover it myself." Murmurs. Alan blinked. Michelle's smile froze. "You see, funny thing. I'm the one who signed that contract, and I'm the one who still owns the property you're trying to sell next month. Strange, huh?" I pulled out the folder, dropped it on the table. "Certified mail went out this morning. You'll find copies with my lawyer by Monday." People were staring now. Alan stood up. "What the hell are you—" I cut him off. "The hell I've been paying for, Alan, is your bar tabs, your golf clubs, your steak, dinners at Ruth's Chris while I eat cold spaghetti in a recliner with a busted spring. The hell I've been tolerating is a daughter who sees me as an ATM with arthritis." Michelle looked like she'd been slapped. Sophia didn't move. She just watched, like she already knew. Because she did. That was the last time I spoke into that microphone. I set it down, walked out to the truck, didn't even touch the cake. On the drive home, Sophia rode beside me in silence. She didn't ask what would happen next. She didn't need to, because I'd already made up my mind. No more bailing people out. No more silent sacrifices. The manila folder sat between us like a shield. Rain tapped the windshield like applause. And in the rear view, the lights of the wedding faded into the dark. I didn't sleep much that night. Sophia curled up on the couch with one of my old flannel jackets and a pillow from the guest room. I offered her the bedroom, but she shook her head, a stubborn little motion beneath her blanket. "I just want to stay close," she murmured. So she stayed, and I sat in the recliner, the same old brown one with the worn armrest where my elbow has carved a permanent groove. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't even flip the lamp, just sat there, staring into the dark while the house spoke in its quiet, nighttime language. Beams settling, pipes clicking, wind brushing against the siding. The house they tried to steal. I let my palm rest on the armrest and felt the faint texture of sawdust still trapped in the fabric from long ago. I built this place in 1994, dug the post holes myself until my back screamed, hung drywall while an oscillating fan tried to push Ohio summer air across sweat-slick skin, laid tile in the kitchen while Michelle, still in diapers, banged on empty paint cans with a plastic spoon like it was a drum set. I remember her laugh echoing off bare studs. Her mother brought me lemonade in a sweating glass and smiled in that soft way she used to, back before everything got complicated, back when family felt permanent. It was supposed to be Michelle's one day. That's why I never charged rent, not even after the divorce when she came home hollowed out and scared, with Sophia clinging to her hip and a stack of bills she couldn't face. She said it would only be 6 months. I said, okay. 6 months became a year. A year became 2. Then one afternoon she dropped a key in my hand, my own key, and said with a bright, brittle smile, "You should get out more, Dad." Like I was the guest now. It started small. A $600 withdrawal here, a shared Amazon Prime account there. Michelle said she needed access to my checking to pay for groceries while she looked for work. I didn't question it. Figured what's mine is hers. Isn't that what being a dad means? Giving until the world stops hurting your kid? Then came the joint line of credit. Just until my tax refund hits, she'd said. That was almost 3 years ago. The refund never came, but the debt did. And I paid it because I couldn't stand the thought of Sophia going without braces, going without a shot at robotics club, going without anything she dreamed about. I built her a laptop from old parts so she could code and tinker, paid the club fees without blinking. Michelle said thanks, but it always sounded like a vending machine. Thanks. Press button, receive help. No depth. No gratitude that sticks. A few months before the wedding, I came home early one day, walked into the hallway and froze when I heard Alan's voice drifting from the kitchen. He was on speakerphone laughing with one of his buddies. Dude, it's golden. Old man's paying for everything. I even got him to bump the deposit by another $2,000. Told him the florist raised prices. He didn't even blink. Something muffled from the other end. Nah, he won't fight it, Alan said, still chuckling. Too damn polite. Michelle says he's always been like that. Guilt-tripped by his ex for decades. Hell, I might ask for a honeymoon check next. I stayed hidden in the hallway. Couldn't move. It was like someone had unplugged the oxygen from the room. Alan's footsteps eventually faded as he walked outside. I stepped into the kitchen and saw my checkbook sitting there. Last entry, $2,250 to Dandelion and Fern Wedding Floral. My signature, only I didn't remember writing it. Then my eyes landed on a notepad Michelle had left on the counter. 6 shaky scribbles of my name, my exact signature, practiced over and over. I stood there, staring, trying to convince myself I was wrong, that I misheard the conversation, that maybe she was joking, or Alan was exaggerating, because believing otherwise, believing my daughter forged my name, was heavier than I was ready to lift. So I said nothing, carried it in my chest like a cinder block. Every time I looked at Sophia after that, I wondered, how much does she know? How much is she pretending not to? Kids see more than they let on. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, I walked in from the garage and found Michelle, Alan, and a real estate agent sitting in the living room, paperwork spread across the coffee table like a poker game. They jumped when they saw me. Michelle smiled too wide. Alan cleared his throat. We were just thinking of maybe cashing out and downsizing, Michelle said quickly. Get closer to Sophia's school, Alan added. I asked, calm as I could. Who's the seller on those papers? Michelle glanced at Alan, then back to me. Technically, it's still under your name, but once you sign those deeds... I didn't answer. Just turned and walked back outside, heart hammering, skin cold. That night, I went down to the basement and dragged out the big plastic file tubs. Spread everything across the workbench. Tax forms, mortgage agreements, the original deed, insurance papers. I checked every line, every seal. It was still mine. Every inch. My name alone. Something inside me shifted. That quiet, conflict-avoidant part of me, the one that stayed silent to keep peace, started packing its bags. 1 week before the wedding, Michelle asked me to ride with her to the county clerk's office. Said she needed help finalizing a legal transfer for refinancing. I told her I'd think about it. Her tone turned sharp. She said I was selfish. Said I didn't trust her. Said after everything she'd endured, the least I could do was help her start fresh. I nodded, but I never went. Instead, I took Sophia out for pancakes that morning. A small diner off Route 62. Vinyl booths. Smell of bacon grease and coffee. She barely touched her fruit cup, kept stabbing strawberries with her fork until juice bled across the plate. Finally, she whispered, Grandpa, if I found out someone was lying to you, like bad lying, would you want to know? I put my fork down, looked her in the eye. Every time. And the dam broke. She pulled out her phone and showed me everything. Screenshots of Michelle and Alan texting about forging signatures, using my account to pay for upgrades, even applying for credit cards in my name. But worse than the theft was the mockery. The relic, they called me, joking about dumping me in a low-income nursing spot near the bypass, once the house sold. For a long time I couldn't breathe, walked out of the diner and just sat in the truck, engine off, eyes unfocused, rain streaking the windshield. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Then I turned to Sophia. "You trust me?" I asked. She nodded, quick and certain. "Then I need your help." That afternoon we went to the county recorder's office. The woman behind the counter wore a holiday sweater. Even though it was still early November, she pulled the file, stamped it. Certified copies of the deed. My name, sole owner. No transfers, no filings. The quitclaim Michelle handed me months ago had never been submitted. Without it, she had no legal standing. Something inside me, long dormant, woke up. A kind of cold clarity. The fear of confrontation shrank against the heat of betrayal. From there I got busy, compiling everything, receipts, bank statements, screenshots, copies of texts. I organized it all into a manila folder, thick enough to make the clasp strain. Called an old buddy who used to do title verification. He gave me the name of a real estate fraud attorney. I booked a consult and sent over the folder. His reply came fast. "You've got them dead to rights, Frank. If you want to go nuclear, this is the arsenal." I stared at that email for a long time. My thumb hovered over reply, and I knew. I was going nuclear, but not yet. Not until the timing was perfect. The week of the wedding, Alan sent me a text. Bright and smug. "Looking forward to your speech, old man. Hope you don't cry too hard." I didn't answer. Instead, I reviewed the venue contract. My name, my payment info. I called the manager, voice steady, asked if the balance was paid. She said no. Said Michelle told her I was covering it. "Not anymore?" I said. Silence on the line. "Sir, are you canceling?" "Not quite," I told her, "just preparing." The night before the wedding, Michelle called me. Sweet voice, fake sugar. "Hope you're ready for the big day, Dad." I asked if she remembered the song we danced to at her first wedding. There was a long pause. Was it that Tim McGraw one?" "Never mind," I said softly. That was enough. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with Sophia. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence while we organized every page of the folder. She lined up the documents with precision, slid them into sleeves. Her hands trembled only once. When we finished, she whispered, "Are you sure?" I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. At the rehearsal dinner, I watched Michelle and Alan float around like royalty. Alan played the charming host, laughing too loud. Michelle hugged me briefly, eyes already scanning the room for someone more important. Neither of them noticed the folder under my arm. Neither noticed that I hadn't touched my plate. Neither noticed Sophia sitting close, phone tucked under the table, already recording when Alan raised a glass and joked to his groomsmen about family suckers who never say no. They wouldn't see the storm coming, not until it was far too late, and I was done holding the umbrella. The wedding day arrived under gray skies. I remember stepping out onto the porch that morning, coffee in one hand, the manila folder in the other. The mug was warm against my fingers, steam curling upward into air that smelled of damp leaves and cooling asphalt. A low mist crept off the grass, swallowing the fence line. For a long, suspended moment, everything felt still, the kind of eerie stillness that comes before a thunderstorm tears the sky apart. Behind me, the screen door squeaked. Sophia's footsteps were soft on the wood. She was already dressed, light blue dress, hair curled into loose waves that framed her face. But there was no smile there, just that quiet, serious gaze of hers. She was holding a wrapped gift box, the edges uneven, like she'd fought the tape and lost, something she'd made for her mom. She hesitated halfway down the stairs when she saw the folder in my hand. "You sure?" she asked, voice small but steady. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. "Today," I said. "They learn I'm not made of paper." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just nodded once and came the rest of the way down. The venue parking lot was already overflowing when we arrived. SUVs lined the gravel shoulder. Golf carts zipped between rows, ferrying guests toward the outdoor archway dressed with faux vines and silk roses that tried too hard to look alive. The air reeked faintly of cologne, sharp and overconfident. Alan's friends milled about in their tailored suits, snapping selfies like they'd just been granted country club memberships. Their laughter was loud and hollow, echoing across the damp fields. Michelle was nowhere to be seen, probably inside somewhere, practicing her perfect angles in the mirror, adjusting a veil she hadn't paid for. I slid the folder under the seat of my truck and shut the door quietly. Timing mattered. You only get one first strike. Sophia slipped her arm through mine as we walked toward the tent. Her grip was tight, her pulse quick against my sleeve. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. I could feel the storm in her, too. The ceremony itself was short, too short for all the money that went into it. Alan smirked through his vows, winking after he said, "I do." Michelle dabbed at fake tears with a napkin tucked into her cleavage, face angled for the cameras. The pastor declared them husband and wife, and the crowd erupted into an awkward whoop. Not joy, not love, just noise, like a sitcom laugh track pushed through cheap speakers. I clapped once. That was enough. Neither of them looked my way. They didn't even nod, didn't acknowledge the man who'd paid for the arch, the chairs, the string quartet warming fingers on rented violins. I wasn't the father of the bride. I was the open wallet they'd drained dry. At the reception, I took the seat they'd assigned me, far edge of the tent, by a pillar wrapped in fairy lights. My name was printed on a little card that read, "Reserved," like I was a piece of furniture someone wasn't sure where to put. I sat and watched. Alan worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, laughing too loud, telling stories about golf trips. Michelle posed for an endless carousel of photos, leaning into every frame like she belonged on the cover of some lifestyle magazine. Her smile was all teeth, nothing behind the eyes. Then I noticed him, the real estate agent I'd caught in my living room weeks before. Same slick hair, same too white smile. He was over near the buffet table, shaking hands with one of Alan's buddies, pointing casually in my direction. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "After the sale, shift it through the LLC. Old man's name won't even matter." That was it. I stood. From across the tent, Sophia's eyes locked with mine. She gave a slow, deliberate nod. The smallest motion, but it landed like a drumbeat. It was time. I found the venue manager near the bar, clipboard in hand, headset tucked behind her ear. "Final payment come through?" I asked quietly. She looked startled, glanced at her notes. "No, Mr. Marino. Your daughter said she'd talk to you about it." I held up a hand to stop her. "Don't worry. Everything's about to be handled." Her brows knit, but she didn't speak. I turned and walked back out into the heavy gray. The sky had darkened to slate. Rain clouds pressed low, swollen and waiting. The air smelled metallic, like ozone. I opened the truck door and reached under the seat, pulled out the folder. The weight of it was reassuring, solid, undeniable. Inside, certified mail receipts, payment stubs, text printouts, the original deed, copies of the unfiled quitclaim. Proof stacked on proof, each page a defense against the erasure they'd planned for me. I rested my hand on the cover for a moment, breathing deep. They thought they could rewrite me out of my own story, but I was still here, and I was about to make sure they never forgot it. Back inside, the DJ tapped the mic. Feedback squealed, then steadied. "Time for toasts," he called out. Laughter, applause, glasses clinking together like cheap wind chimes. Alan's best man went first, a crude story about Vegas, golf carts, and rescuing Alan from the wrong bridesmaid. The crowd howled with drunken glee. Alan threw his head back and laughed the loudest. Next was Michelle's maid of honor, She delivered a tearful ode to childhood friendship and how Michelle finally found the man who truly understands her. There were sniffles. Ohs. Then the DJ's voice rang out again. Let's hear from the proud father of the bride. Polite clapping, thin and tepid. Michelle barely looked up. I stood slowly, folder in hand, and walked to the mic. Each step felt measured, deliberate. I could feel the air shift as I reached the center of the room and set the folder on the table beside the champagne flutes. I looked out at the sea of faces, some curious, some impatient, some glued to their phones. I wasn't sure I'd say anything tonight, I began. My voice came out calm, steady, but then again, I wasn't sure I'd be invited. A few chuckles, nervous and thin. I paid for the arch you stood under, the venue we're sitting in, even the napkins. I wrote those checks with a smile because I thought I was helping my daughter start over. Michelle's brow furrowed. Alan's arms crossed tight. I let the silence stretch before continuing. But this morning I realized something. I wasn't investing in love. I was paying a ransom. For silence. For erasure. Gasps now. Whispering rippled through the tables. Alan stepped forward, palms out. Frank! Maybe now's not the... I lifted a hand, sharp and commanding. Sit down, Alan. He stopped mid-step. I opened the folder and drew the first document. This is the original property deed for the house you're planning to sell next month. Held it high, the county seal catching the light. My name's on it, not Michelle's, not yours. Then I lifted another page, the venue contract. I paid for tonight, but I froze the final payment yesterday. You now owe them $9,000. If it's not covered by midnight, they'll pursue the bride and groom. All eyes darted to the back of the tent where the venue manager stood, arms folded, face grim. She gave a single confirming nod. Michelle's face went white. Alan muttered, "This is insane." From her table, Sophia's voice cut the air clean and strong. "No, this is justice." I reached for the phone screenshots. Color printouts clipped neatly. "Here's what they said about me," I said evenly. "How I'm just a relic, a broken man, a charity case." The room had gone dead quiet now. Even the DJ stood frozen. "And here's the funny part," I added softly. "They almost got away with it. Almost." I turned my gaze to Michelle, held it. "I raised you better than this." Then to Alan, "I gave you the benefit of the doubt." Then to everyone, friends, strangers, gawkers who'd eaten my food and drunk my wine. But today, I stopped pretending I'm invisible. I closed the folder slowly. The clasp clicked shut with a tiny final snap, set it gently on the table. And without another word, I turned and walked out. No applause, no boos, just the sound of 100 held breaths. Like a room full of people suddenly saw the cracks under all that polish. Outside, the rain finally let go. Heavy cold drops that soaked my shoulders as soon as I stepped into it. The sky rumbled low, approving. Sophia met me at the truck, tears streaking her cheeks, but there was a tremor of a smile there too. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said, opening the door for her. "We did." We climbed in. Wipers squeaked to life, clearing the windshield in steady arcs. Headlights cut through the silver gloom. In the rear view, I saw the venue staff moving toward Alan and Michelle. The string lights along the tent began to flicker as someone pulled a plug. Servers whispered, confused but energized. The fantasy was unraveling in real time, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Not one bit. By the time we got back to the house, Sophia had fallen asleep in the passenger seat. Her shoes were kicked halfway off, one heel dangling by a thread. Her hair had come loose from the careful curls she'd pinned that morning, now soft waves across her cheek. Mascara smudged faintly under her eyes, but her face was peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. The kind of peace you get only when the truth has finally been spoken aloud. I pulled into the driveway slow, letting the gravel crunch beneath the tires. The truck idled, engine ticking as it cooled. A thin fog curled across the yard, glowing under the porch light that flickered on automatically, like the house itself had been waiting for us to return. My house. The one they tried to erase me from, but couldn't. I looked down at the manila folder in my lap. Its edges were curled from the rain, pages slightly warped from the damp night air, but everything inside was still there, still true, still mine. I didn't go inside right away, just sat there, listening to the soft rhythm of the cooling engine, watching storm water snake down the windshield in slow silver rivulets. The rain had stopped, but left the air smelling like wet pavement and cut grass. It felt like the whole night was exhaling. My mind drifted, unspooling a decade's worth of swallowed hurt. The time Michelle crashed my truck and told everyone I'd done it, said I'd been careless, maybe even drunk. I'd stayed quiet because I couldn't stand the idea of shaming her. The time she asked for help with her first mortgage, crying on the phone, swearing she'd be homeless without me, then posted photos weeks later of a brand new Peloton bike in her living room before she ever paid the bank. The time she told Sophia not to invite me to her 13th birthday party because it would just be awkward. It wasn't awkward. It was devastating. And every time I showed up anyway, because that's what dads do. Or so I told myself. But there comes a point where showing up isn't love anymore. It's permission. And they had turned my silence into an invitation to take and take and take, until it wasn't just ungrateful, it was criminal. I looked down at the folder again, realized it wasn't a weapon, it was a mirror, one they couldn't look into without facing what they'd become. I reached over, opened the glove box, and pulled out one last document, the one I hadn't shown anyone yet, the county record of rescission, filed that very morning. It officially voided the unsigned quitclaim deed Michelle had slipped in front of me. It restored, in black and white, what I'd nearly let go. The house was 100% under my control. That house, not for sale. Not by them. Not ever. Sophia stirred, her eyelids fluttering. She blinked herself awake, voice drowsy. "Are we home?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, baby girl, we're home." She yawned, stretching, then sat up slowly, still half asleep as we climbed out of the truck and walked toward the porch. The wood creaked under our feet like it was greeting us. Inside, the house smelled faintly of rain-soaked wood and old coffee. I made her a grilled cheese, simple, golden edges, crisped in butter. She ate half of it before her head drooped mid-bite. I caught the plate just before it slid from her lap, tucked her into the couch, pulled a quilt over her shoulders. For a long moment, I just watched her sleep. She looked safe here, safe with me. That was enough. Then I went to my desk. It was time to finish what I started. The next morning dawned pale and cold. I brewed coffee strong enough to cut through the fog in my chest, then laid out envelopes in a neat row across the kitchen table. 6 of them, heavy with paperwork. 1 to Alan, 1 to Michelle, 1 to the venue manager, 1 to the county recorder, 1 to the lawyer, and 1 to myself. I wanted that one to arrive weeks later so I could hold it in my hands and remember the feeling, the exact weight of reclaiming your dignity. Inside each envelope, a notarized affidavit of ownership, a cease and desist against fraudulent representation, a formal declaration of debt tied to the wedding charges Michelle had pushed under my name. Every page signed, stamped, witnessed. I wasn't asking for repayment. I was simply shutting every door they might try to pry open again. No refinancing, no selling, no borrowing against the house, no power of attorney, nothing. Their fantasy life ended at the mailbox. 3 days later, Michelle called. I let it ring until voicemail picked up, watched the notification blink, then disappear. That night, she texted, "Dad, why are you doing this?" As if that question wasn't 10 years too late. I didn't reply. The next day, another message came. I made mistakes, okay? But this is my life too. Still, I stayed silent. Some answers don't fit in texts. On the 3rd day, tires crunched in the driveway. I looked out the front window and felt a flicker of old instinct. the one that used to push me to make peace, to fix things. But it passed. Sophia was in the kitchen helping me wash dishes. She froze, sponge slipping into the soapy water, and backed away from the window. "She's here," she whispered. I dried my hands slowly, feeling the weight of the moment, then stepped onto the porch. Michelle stood at the bottom of the steps, arms crossed tight against the chill. Her hair was messy, mascara smudged into shadows under her eyes. She looked smaller than she used to, but not softer. "You sent me a lien notice," she said flatly. "That's right," I answered. "For the wedding?" "For all of it." Her mouth tightened. "You're humiliating me." I shook my head. "No, Michelle, you did that all on your own." She looked down, kicking at the gravel with one shoe like a kid caught lying. Her voice cracked just a little. "I didn't think you'd ever fight back." I stayed silent. Let the wind move between us. "You used to be so soft," she said finally. "I still am," I replied quietly. "Just not stupid." She flinched, then reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Held it out to me. "What's that?" "My apology," she said, voice trembling. I didn't take it. "Put it in the mail." For a heartbeat, she just stood there, envelope extended between us like a bridge I wasn't going to cross. Then she pulled it back, slipped it into her bag. "I guess this is goodbye," she said. I nodded once. "Guess it is." She looked like she might say more. Then she didn't. She turned and walked away without looking back. For the first time in years, watching her leave didn't hollow me out. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like relief, like wholeness slowly returning. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer sweating in my hand and an old photo album spread across my lap. Sophia sat beside me, flipping carefully through plastic sleeves filled with sun-faded pictures. There was one from Michelle's 10th birthday. I was holding the cake, smiling wide. She was leaning over the candles, eyes closed, wish poised on her lips. Her mom was behind the camera. We looked happy. Maybe we were in that snapshot kind of way. But now I could see the truth hiding even there. Me holding the weight, smiling through it, making sure everyone else got to feel safe. Tonight, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Light, untethered. I closed the album and looked at Sophia. "Promise me something," I said. She straightened. "Anything. If you ever feel like someone's using you, walk away. Don't wait as long as I did." She nodded fiercely. "I will, and I'll never be like them." I believed her. The moon slid out from behind slow-moving clouds, spilling silver light across the yard. The house behind us creaked softly in the night breeze, but it no longer felt heavy, no longer felt like a burden. It felt like mine again, like it had been waiting patiently for me to remember who I was. I didn't hear from Michelle for almost 2 months after the certified folder landed in her lap. Not a word, not a call, not a text, not even a lawyer's letter trying to bluff her way back into the house. Just silence. And to be honest, I was fine with that. I didn't want revenge for blood. I wanted distance. I wanted peace. And slowly, quietly, I started to get it. The days began to feel lighter. The air didn't hang so heavy when I stepped outside. I could sit on my porch and drink coffee without glancing over my shoulder, wondering what bill or betrayal was waiting next. The old swing chair creaked under me in the mornings, but it sounded friendly now, not weary. I'd reclaimed more than my house. I'd reclaimed my name. The neighbors noticed, too. Mrs. Lansing from across the street. Cardigan always half-buttoned, perfume like lilacs. Dropped off a casserole one afternoon. Steam fogged the lid as she held it out. "You're standing straighter lately," she said with a knowing smile. I laughed, surprised. I hadn't realized it myself. But she was right. Sophia started spending weekends with me, then weeknights. She seemed to bloom here, bit by bit. By mid-February, she asked, quiet, almost whispering, if she could stay full-time. "Grandpa, can I just live here? For real?" I said yes before she finished the sentence. We didn't bother with a courtroom. Michelle didn't contest it. I think even she knew she'd lost the right to object. Or maybe she just couldn't summon the fight anymore. I enrolled Sophia at the local high school, signed the papers with hands that didn't shake, bought her a simple desk, a fresh backpack, notebooks still stiff with newness, and a modest phone. Nothing flashy, just dependable. She didn't ask for much. She just wanted space to breathe. That made two of us. One rainy Thursday, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Mr. Marino?" A cheerful voice asked when I answered. "This is the venue manager. Thought you'd want an update." She explained that Alan had tried to dispute the unpaid wedding balance with his credit card company, claimed fraud, tried to pin it all on me. But, she added with a small laugh, we sent them the signed contract, with your name and your payment history. Case closed. She paused a beat, almost warmly. "You were smart to pull out when you did, Mr. Marino." I told her thank you and hung up, a quiet satisfaction humming in my chest. After the call, I walked to the mailbox. Damp flyers and coupons slid into my hand, and one official envelope from the county clerk. I stood under the gray drizzle and opened it right there, the paper softening in the mist. Inside, confirmation that the rescission had been processed. The house was fully, legally, back in my name. No pending claims, no lien attempts, no loopholes, no tricks. I stared at that document like it was a diploma, not from any school, but from years of being silent and letting myself be erased. After everything they'd taken, this small, crisp piece of paper gave me something they couldn't touch. Control, and not just over the house, over myself. The final twist came on a Sunday in March. I was pushing a cart through the cereal aisle at the local Giant Eagle when I saw him. Alan, alone, shoulders slumped, half-empty cart, staring at a shelf of off-brand cornflakes like he couldn't remember why he'd come. For a second I just watched. He looked hollow, like a man who'd finally realized the gravy train ran out of tracks. The polished arrogance was gone. His shoes were scuffed, jacket stiff with road salt, no wedding ring. Even his hair, once so carefully gelled, hung limp and unkempt. Then he turned and saw me. His eyes narrowed. Recognition. A flash of the old swagger trying to surface. He didn't say anything, just stared. I stared back. Calm. Steady. He opened his mouth, maybe to spit some venom, maybe to beg. But whatever words he found, he swallowed them, and he pushed his cart away. That was it. No threats, no scene, no final desperate play. He knew. He knew I'd beaten him. Not with fists, not with rage, but with facts. With paper. With patience. The kind of slow-burning revenge that doesn't leave bruises. Just a scar under the skin that only the guilty can feel. I didn't even flinch, just kept walking. Picked up my box of oats. Moved on. Back home, the house smelled like onions and warm bread. I made chili, heavy on cumin, a little too much spice. Sophia helped dice onions, laughing when the fumes made my eyes water. "You're not crying, are you?" she teased, bumping my elbow. "Maybe a little," I said, sniffling, but only because I like my chili strong. We ate with the windows cracked open to the sound of light rain. Steam curled from our bowls, clinging to the cool spring air. Later, we carried blankets to the porch. The boards were damp but warming under a fresh breeze. She wrapped herself in one of my flannels and leaned her head against my arm. The stars were just beginning to pierce the thinning clouds. The storm had moved on. "You think they'll try to come back?" she asked softly. I thought about it. Maybe. Maybe not. But it didn't matter. Because they'd never get what they wanted again. Not my house. Not my money. Not my silence. I looked down at her, my voice low but sure. "They can come knocking if they want," I said, "but the locks have changed." She smiled into the night, and in that quiet moment, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of a long betrayal. It was the beginning of something new. Me. Finally, choosing who stays in my life and who doesn't. No guilt, no hesitation, Just clean roads ahead. We sat there for a long time, two quiet souls on an old wooden porch, watching headlights fade down the county road until the night was empty and still. And for the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.